What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I try and help you guys keep on top of the world's #2 economy. My name is Tony. Hey guys, so this was going to be a regular episode, but there was just so much that has happened with Taiwan, this developing Taiwan Strait crisis that we've seen unfold over the last few months. There's so much to cover with the cross-strait relationship that I decided to do this, a standalone Taiwan edition that looks only at developments in the Taiwan Strait between the mainland Taiwan and of course external players, most notably the United States. And then tomorrow I'm going to release the regular China update that looks at all sorts of developments, geopolitical, political, economic, military, across China for the week. If you're interested in the episode from a few days ago, the midweek episode of China Update, which was quite big, click up here. If you enjoyed this video, it's a massive help if you smash the like button as well. It really does help. But with all that said, let's jump into this week's special cross-strait edition of China Update. So the first question worth asking, of course, is why is the Taiwan Strait situation more unstable than usual this year? Well, cross-strait relations between Taipei and Beijing have been cold for several years now already. Plus, with the pandemic, we have seen a general deterioration in stability around the world and increased assertive and even aggressive behavior around China's territorial periphery, whether with India or with Japan or in the South China Sea, and the cross-strait situation is no exception to these developments. However, with Taiwan, there has been notable developments this year that are worth touching on. We have, of course, been covering them as they happened on the show, but it's worth noting them again here now. Firstly, Taiwan nailed handling COVID. Just nailed it. Taiwan recognized the risk in Wuhan as early as December of last year, almost a month before Wuhan was locked down on the mainland. As a result, its population of 24 million people has only seen 7 deaths due to COVID. This, of course, is in deep contrast with the mainland's gross mismanagement in December and January, and of course accusations of international misinformation and wolf warrior diplomacy. All in all, this was a major global soft power win for Taiwan and sparked calls for more Taiwan representation in international bodies like the World Health Organization. Second, as well, and I think this is very important too, several US officials have visited Taiwan in recent months, including Secretary of Health and Human Services, the highest ranking US official to visit Taiwan in more than 40 years. It seems that in the current environment with the tremendously poor US-China relationship, the US may indeed be recalibrating its posturing with Taiwan. Now, Beijing would argue that the Taiwan administration, the current administration in Taipei, has pursued separatist policies and that Beijing, has a right to protect national sovereignty, and essentially this is all Taiwan's fault. We're going to look specifically at Chinese claims, particularly with what's being communicated in Chinese state-run media over the last week or so shortly. Okay, with that done, what are the developments specifically from this week? Over the weekend, China released a video simulating a military invasion of Taiwan. This likely came in response to Taiwan celebrating its National Day on October 10, often called the Double 10 because it happens in the 10th month. This marks the founding of the Republic of China in 1911. Well, actually, technically, the Republic of China wasn't established until 1912. October 10th, 1911 marks the beginning of the Wuchang Qiyi, the Wuchang uprising, which led to the Xinhai Revolution, which led to the toppling of the Qing dynasty and eventually the creation of the Republic of China in 1912. By the way, that massive uprising, the Wuchang Qiyi, that basically led to this revolution that ended 2,000 years of imperial Chinese history. Guess which city it started in? Wuhan. Now the PRC, the People's Republic of China, which was established in 1949 by the CCP, does not recognize the authority of the Republic of China, doesn't recognize the Republic of China. It claims to be the only legitimate government for China, including Taiwan. Anyway, this video simulating a military invasion of Taiwan is just the latest in a series of saber-rattling behavior, including military drills in the Strait over the last few weeks. On Tuesday, US media reports that according to 3 sources, the White House is moving forward with 3 sales of advanced weaponry to Taiwan, sending in recent days a notification of the deals to Congress for approval. We are seeing a lot more arms sales being passed by the US. Historically, the US has been quite hesitant when it comes to arms sales, particularly of advanced weaponry, for fear of disturbing the relationship with Beijing. But with the relationship so poor at the moment, it seems this is not a leading concern. The notifications were for a, quote, truck-based rocket launcher made by Lockheed Martin Corp. Called a high mobility artillery rocket system, long-range air-to-ground missiles made by Boeing Co. and external sensor pods for F-16 jets that allow the real-time transmission of imagery and data from the aircraft back to ground stations, end quote. Now, there has been a strange series of articles in state media in the mainland about Taiwan spies in the mainland being published over the last week or so. Like these strange stories about all these espionage cases that are being wrapped up in the mainland, spies that are being captured. It seemed a little bit out of place to me and I'm sure others. Well, it turns out that on Wednesday, the new Taipei District Court in Taiwan sentenced a retired colonel to 4 years imprisonment on spying charges. The court said in a statement that the retired colonel violated Taiwan's national security laws by trying to build a spy network for Beijing and recruit another lieutenant colonel. Xin Qiang, head of Fudan University's Taiwan Research Center, published a paper this week that gives a good look into the strategic thinking in the mainland, particularly when it comes to how the mainland views the US and its relationship with Taiwan. I'm just going to read a few small passages for brevity, but I'll put the link to the paper in the description below. He wrote, quote, "The magnitude of Taiwan's value and danger to the United States' strategic interests depends primarily on the contrast between the combined national strength of China and the United States. In other words, the greater the power gap between China and the United States, the lower the strategic cost and the lower the strategic danger faced by the United States in supporting Taiwan authorities and managing a divided Taiwan Strait." It goes on to say, quote, "It is widely predicted that China's GDP will overtake that of the United States to become the world's largest economy around 2031, according to authoritative institutions such as Goldman Sachs and the World Bank. When the global power landscape truly enters an era in which the two powers of China and the United States are running neck and neck, it is inevitable that the United States will once again abandon Taiwan as a strategic high-risk asset." End quote. So basically his argument is that due to the power asymmetry between the United States and China, Taiwan at the moment is seen as a low-risk asset. But in the future, as that asymmetry is reduced, and it's going to take a lot more for the US to be able to stand by protecting Taiwan, the cost of having that strategic asset increases, and its utility, its benefit, reduces substantially. So the thinking here is that as China goes past the US, it's assuming here that it does, but let's assume it does. If China surpasses the US economically, then the value of that asset increases to the point where the US, as the author puts it, abandons the asset. Now, we've seen a lot of bellicose language coming out of state media, as well as saber-rattling activities from the People's Liberation Army over the last few weeks towards Taiwan. But a commentary written on Thursday under the pen name of An Ping in the state-run People's Daily adopted very rarely used and incredibly concerning language. Written, of course, in Chinese and entitled 站在历史正确的一边，告台湾情势不满书, or in English, something like standing on the right side of history, a letter to Taiwan's intelligence and security departments. Now, the commentary uses the very rarely used phrase 勿谓言之不预, which means something like, don't say we didn't warn you. Now, this phrase has only been used by Central Ministry commentaries in the People's Daily a few dozen times over the last half century, including in 1962 before Taiwan went to war with India, and in 1979 when China went to war with Vietnam. Although some experts have argued that in recent years, though this term should be taken very, very seriously, it is not as serious as it was in editorials in the mid to late 20th century. Now, some of you might be saying, come on, Tony, you're overreacting a little bit here. We shouldn't be reading so much into a phrase. Well, here is what the state-run Global Times wrote about the commentary. Quote, "Don't say you've not been forewarned. The Chinese phrase, which has been used by the Chinese mainland previously before going to war, reappeared on Thursday in a commentary posted on the flagship newspaper of the Communist Party of China, the People's Daily." End quote. Now let's read this commentary. It's a very harsh, very powerful, and very threatening commentary that has been directed at Taiwan in the midst of this larger, growing cross-Taiwan Strait crisis. Listen to the language. This is what the central government, this is what the party is saying directly to Taiwan and her administration. Quote, "There can be no smoke without fire. For a period of time, under the influence of the international climate and the microclimate in Taiwan, the Taiwan administration has been relying more and more on the support of foreigners, intensifying its collusion and convergence with external anti-China forces and frequently stirring up trouble, seriously endangering cross-strait peace and stability of the situation in the Taiwan Strait. Externally, Tai pursues money diplomacy and intelligence diplomacy and is willing to act as a pawn, a traitor, betraying national security and the vital interests of the Taiwanese people in exchange for the protection of the United States and the West. General Secretary Xi Jinping profoundly pointed out that we were willing to create a broad space for peaceful reunification, but we will never leave any space for secessionist activities for Taiwan independence in any form. We do not renounce the use of force, and we will retain the option of taking all necessary measures against interference by external forces and separatists. We hereby solemnly warn these stubborn elements in Taiwan's intelligence services who cling to the position of Taiwan independence that there is no way out but to die in a fire of your own making. Don't wander on this desperate quest to find a way out. Don't say we didn't warn you." End quote. And last up on this special video looking at cross-strait developments, state-run media in the mainland this week has been attacking recent CSIS polling of American adults, which showed popular US commitment to defending Taiwan in the case of a PRC invasion. Ironically, Chinese government state-run media is arguing that Americans are only supporting defending Taiwan because of US government propaganda in US media. Quote, "The poll results have been greatly influenced by what the Trump administration is doing. Foreign media's propaganda on the Taiwan question has always been biased and distorted. It falsely portrays Taiwan as being squeezed and threatened by the Chinese mainland. Such large-scale misleading propaganda has guided public opinion. Policy adjustment of the Trump administration has had impacts on people's understanding of the Taiwan question. As the US is trying to boost ties with Taiwan by selling weapons and sending senior officials there, these moves have made people believe that the Trump administration is recalibrating US policies toward Taiwan. The poll, based on a fact-free sampling of propaganda, is meaningless." End quote. Now, while I very much disagree with that characterization, it is of course always important that we look at what Chinese state media, what intellectuals, and what PLA strategists are writing so we can keep abreast on the scope of the intellectual debate with these geopolitical questions in the People's Republic of China. Okay guys, that is a special Taiwan episode of China Update this week. Hope you enjoyed it. Put your comments below. I look forward to talking to you guys. If you have any questions or any feedback, throw that down there as well. And tomorrow I will have a regular episode of China Update. Until then, keep safe and keep sane. See you later.